Welcome back to the Fan Zone here at the LeMieux National Dressage Championships. The sun is shining for our next guest. Andy Thomas, thank you so much for coming onto our stage today. We're going to talk about, I was going to say torturing riders, but there's a much more technical side of it. But you have worked with, we were just talking then, we've worked with all of the teams. You've worked with the US team as well as a physio, but it's so much more than that. I'm so glad you can come on the stage because I've been doing a bit of research on you as well. I've known you for a long time. We've been out with the para team, and we've even been for a drink or two after some of the championships. But looking on your website, you talk about the dynamics between riders and the horses and asymmetry and how it affects rider performance. But I think you're probably best explain to what that means and what it is you actually do. And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, I'm a human physiotherapist. I don't do the horses particularly, but I've come from a background of working in professional sport, in professional football and track and field. But I've ridden all my life, and I got the opportunity to work with the British equestrian team from 2005 onwards. So I worked with the British team with all the disciplines, eventing, dressage and show jumping and paras up to 2015. And my role predominantly, obviously, to treat injuries, but to look at performance, to look at how we can improve the performance of a rider on the horse. I always sort of say my job is to produce or give the coach the best product to work with. So if I can give a coach a very symmetrical, balanced, adaptable rider, they're going to be able to do more with them in that coaching session. So we sort of take that from a coaching point of view and then put it into performance. So in competitions, then I look at how we can prepare the rider for the competition. So I literally see people just before they get on the horse to create symmetry for that period that they are on the horse in their performance. And
I'm thinking over the last few years, especially recently, we've seen how much rider performance has changed. It used to be all about the horse, and you must have seen a huge change in your lifetime of doing this.
Oh, hugely. I mean, I obviously coming from other professional sports where sort of sports science and sports medicine was highly regarded in terms of performance, to then coming into equestrian, I always laugh because I came from a point of track and field where if their fingernail fell off, they'd want treatment for a week, to coming into working with eventers who would get on with a broken leg.
A collarbone,
exactly.
Who cares, yeah, legs falling off, as long as the horse is trotted up fine.
My first badminton, I had a rider come to my clinic, and he said, would you strap my shoulder off? And I looked at the shoulder, and it was quite clearly broken. And he said, just strap it up for me. I said, no, I can't do that. So it was very interesting. So I always say pain is not performance enhancing, and trying to get riders to understand that you can ride pain-free, and one of my jobs was to try and persuade people to get treatment regularly, and that's when I bought a lorry and decided that I was going to travel 2 yards to see riders and 2 competitions because they weren't going to travel to see me. So performance now, and I was head of sports science and medicine for the BEF up to 2015, and then with the USA team from 2015 to the end of Tokyo. So it was all about looking at how we can improve the performance from sports medicine and sports science to create a better performing rider on the horse.
And that's a complete change in mindset, isn't it? Because you think, oh, we go to the physio when we're injured, and you've not only taken that, like, you have to see me before you get injured, yes, and actually improve their performance. So completely changing the way horse riders have done it.
Absolutely. So we talk about asymmetry, and asymmetry is inherent in humans as it is in horses, and asymmetry will eventually lead to injury, never mind the trauma that a lot of riders are putting themselves through. So we did a lot of research into looking at how we can prevent injury, particularly back pain, hip and groin pain in riders, and creating symmetry for that period was very interesting. And we developed a process where we could adapt exercise and treatment to create symmetry to prevent injury, but also to help performance on the horse.
I think talking a lot about that as well, Andy. I mean, you've really helped me in my riding career. I mean, many years you helped me in the world class program, telling me to sit this and do that and be here, and I've really taken that forward into my future. And I think the biggest thing for me was the fact that you understood horses. So you understood what the horse was doing underneath me, and you understood what I was feeling. You used to always say, I'm very short, the horse is very big, I have to adapt that. But I think what's so fascinating is that you understand what the horse is doing, but how much, if the rider can change, how much it can help the whole combination.
Yes, I mean, one of the things, I mean, obviously I've watched so much, I've ridden, understand the feeling of being able to turn better one way compared to the other, just at a basic level. But looking at a world-class level, and at any level, to be honest, you can work out and watch a rider move and see how they adapt to that particular movement. Obviously, as the moves get more technical, then it becomes quite obvious when someone is struggling more one way than the other. And one of the things that we particularly did with the British team, but we did it a lot with the US, was to really analyse movements. So we would look at each individual movement of every rider and analyse whether they've got better movements to the left or to the right, whether the right half pass was or the left half pass was constantly losing marks on every horse that they rode. So we could really track that from a research point of view and analyse each rider's advantages and disadvantages as a physical person.
Yeah, and it's absolutely brilliant. I see that a lot. You come and do these massive clinics, and it's amazing to see how much the sport is modernising and how people are so forward-thinking and now changing their whole mindset. And if I can get sorted, the horse gets better. And many of my clients come to a lesson after they've been to you, and it's fascinating to me the difference on how they almost that can see it, they can feel it, and how they change the way they ride.
Well, that's often we see so many riders at every level. I mean, I don't just work with world class level, I work with every level, and some of the clinics I do are just in walk, and we can do so much with a rider just in walk. So the idea is to most riders struggle and they get to a point where they plateau with both their coach and with the horse. They can't move on from that level because they're stuck physically. So what we do is change the way they move in the human point of view, and then help facilitate that movement on the horse. What does it feel like to sit deeper? What does it feel like to create a nice elastic contact? What does it feel like to move laterally freely one way compared to the other? And we give them that freedom of movement. Once they've felt it, it's easier. I always say it's a bit like trying to describe as a coach the taste of orange juice when you've never tasted orange juice. Once you've tasted it, once you've felt it, you can reproduce it. And a lot of what I do with the use of taping and exercise and releasing facilitates the rider to be able to move better, and they can feel the movement that the coach is trying to get them to do.
And it must be quite difficult as well, because we understand that horses can be left-handed and right-handed, the same as a human being. How do you keep the balance right?
Well, it's interesting. The asymmetry patterns that we've found 3 asymmetry patterns. One pattern is particular that 92% of humans have this pattern, whether they're left or right-handed. So the left or right-handedness is less of a problem than people think. You often see it on the horse, but the asymmetry pattern, most people are weak through the right side and tight through the left. That's the most common pattern, and we see that. I feel myself
moving now.
Yeah, and we see that with the horse. And a lot of horses, again, some of the research we've done in the US with the vets is looking at right hind weakness of horses. Most humans are right hind weak as well. So there's a correlation between the two.
And I've noticed that a lot. And when we think about how we break the horses in, we lead from the left, we get on from the left, we break in from the left. So their exit is always through the right shoulder. And 99% of the time, you'll always see the rider can't get right canter. Well, the horse's shoulder's in the way.
Exactly.
And it's interesting you saying how they're tight through their hips with actually mirroring the way the horse is being as well. So it's really interesting you're seeing that way as well.
Absolutely. Most riders will sit to the left. I often call my clinics the Find Your Right Seat Bone Clinic, because most people can't find
Literally.
it. So it's about trying to identify where the issues are and create that, because most riders will follow the same patterns, even at the top level. A lot of our top riders have the same patterns. They're no better in their asymmetry, they just hide it better.
And it's really interesting that. And as well, I've watched a lot of your videos, and you talked about taping earlier, but you also do this really fascinating thing with bands as well. Yeah,
so we use bands to facilitate. Once we've changed the rider off the horse, we use the bands just to facilitate the activation and the deactivation of the muscles that are working or shouldn't be working too hard. And then we use the tape to change the way riders feel and move. So it physically changes the mechanics of movement, but also the muscle mechanics and the joint mechanics, which then gives them the ability to sit deeper. We've done quite a bit of research and looking at how we can change both the horse and rider quite significantly. And this is where, at top performance, we would look at analysing percentage gains in a half-pass left or a half-pass right, or a pirouette, or changes. And often where mistakes happen, it can be just the physicality of the rider that they can't get rid of, and we can change that.
And we're here at the Dressage Championships, and you work across the board: dressage, eventing, show jumping. Who's the worst?
Worst at what?
At who are the best at taking on board this kind of working on themselves? Well, and do you find that one discipline more crooked, or find it harder?
It's always difficult. The dressage, without a doubt, because of the nature of the OCD-ness of dressage riders,
steady.
they're more in tune with the detail.
Yeah.
They're probably our biggest buy-in. The next are the jumpers, show jumpers. They really understand, and I do a lot with the show jumping teams to look at how we can improve a turn. And they understand that because time means money to them.
And millions in show jumping.
If we can scrape off 0.2 of a second on a right turn, it makes a big difference. Eventers are a different breed altogether, because often injuries come into play as well. And they're getting a lot better at understanding the detail, and again, it's changed enormously over the past 20 years, and it shows when you look at the performance of the British eventing team at Tokyo. These are riders that come through the world-class program that understand performance, and they delivered that performance detail quite significantly in Tokyo, which was phenomenal to watch. And now the eventers are really taking on that detail. So in real terms, dressage without a doubt, show jumpers and the eventers are now bringing that in quite closely.
And our sport is renowned for the longevity of an athlete.
Well, yeah.
So has that been quite hard as well? Like, I know Carl now has a running machine, and you see Mark Todd in eventing took up yoga later on in life. But have you found that quite hard in educating some of the riders that have been around a little bit longer than someone like Bobby?
Yes and no. I mean, this sport is so unique. Well, we've got males competing equally against females. In Rio, we had in the dressage, the youngest was 18, the oldest was 78. So we've got to deal with aging. It's different to working in gymnastics or track and field, where they may only have 1 or 2 cycles to perform. We can, we had a super rider in Tokyo called Sabine Shoot-Kerry, who was 54, and it was her first Olympics, and she was phenomenal. So there's the beauty of this sport is that it allows us to be successful at any age, and keep going, and that's important. But we change.
And what I found really interesting, I've been working with Bobby quite a lot filming, and one of the first things she said when she was filming these masterclass pieces was, I want to do something on rider fitness. Yeah. And that was just so interesting because for me, I've worked with all the top riders in a filming capacity, and you were the first person to take that on, and it was just so popular and so interesting. And I think, Bobby, would I be right in saying that your generation of rider coming through with people like Andy on board, it has changed a lot?
Yeah, I mean, the riders have changed, but the horses have changed. It's not, Dad won't mind me saying, but back in the day when Dad was really doing the Grand Prix horses, there were big German heavy-blooded horses. It didn't really matter where you sat or what you did, that's the way they were going to go. But now you look at the horses that we have now, the trots and the canters. Look at Lottie Fry, for example. If Lottie's not physically fit enough, there is no physical way that she could ride a horse like that. So I think balance is so important, and I think it's really great that you've now opened that up in a way for all levels, horse and rider.
Well, it's really interesting when we talk about fitness, and then coming from professional football and then track and field, fitness is critical. One of the things that we found, particularly with riding, is there is a level of fitness that will improve your performance. There's also a level of fitness, if you push it too far, it can actually decrease the performance, because the human isn't the main athlete. Fitness is critical, but as critical with regard to symmetry. If you bulk up and become too heavy and strong, it can actually make performance a lot worse. And I always say, physicality-wise...
I'm just going to say that to my husband when he's like, are you going to the gym? I'm like, it might decrease my performance on a horse.
So it's got to be
holding on to that when I can't be bothered to get out of bed in the morning. Thanks, Andy. Noted.
I'll write you a note.
Yes, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
But it's one of those things that, when you look at the age, most riders will not peak until they're at least 25, 26. If you talk about the physicality, that's about the age of 10, 11 of a horse. So 25, 26 is the human age, 10, 11 is the equine age. So it's very unusual to see anybody under the age of 25 being highly successful. Lottie is a good example. Charlotte was a fantastic example. And Isabel Wirth was another one. Not many people do that at that age, but to keep it at that level is hard because physically you've not matured until that age. Like a horse, you wouldn't see a Grand Prix horse under the age of 10 generally. So we've got to look at the physicality of things. We sort of peak around in our 30s, then we deteriorate slightly, but...
Thanks, Andy. You're just ruining everything.
But we can change that. We can just change the way we train.
And talking about training, so are you here with clients over the show?
So we're as the part of the Testt system, which is the Thomas Equestrian Symmetry Types and Tests, we have a number of supported riders that have been on a number of my clinics that are at all different levels, different ages, and we just offer a support system for them from the human point of view. So offer them advice on injury, offer them help on their symmetry, and then offer them help at the performance, whatever level they're at. So we have para rider, we have young riders, we've got middle-aged riders, we've got older riders, and it's great to have that, and all at different levels, from novice right the way up to Grand Prix.
And do you watch from the sidelines, and someone who maybe hasn't worked with you, can you kind of go, I can see that.
Yes,
they just did that.
It's a curse. I tend to just watch people and I can immediately see, as I said, I'm not a coach, but I can see movement and I can see how riders just in competition, just as they're warming up, can affect or block specific movements of the horse. And you can almost predict just by how they move as to what they're going to be good at and what they're not going to be good at. And it's not always the horse's fault.
I don't know about you, Bobby, but he's making me sit up. As I sit
I've literally just seen you getting higher and higher.
I know. It makes you want to sit up. And is there any, we've mentioned Lottie and Charlotte, but would they stand out for you when you watch riders? Who is it? Obviously, we can't name all the names and we don't want to, but for us watching, who is it, the riders you like, and you say, right, if you want to aspire to look like anyone on a horse, those are your guys?
Well, I think it's very difficult because everybody's a different shape and size.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. And what I like to see is symmetry. I like to see the way a rider moves effectively on a horse, and particularly that it looks easy. And like any sport, if you can make it look easy, it looks fantastic. Charlotte's and Lottie make it look easy, and it's lovely to see. And watching that sort of level, you're dealing with very small details, but they're details that matter, and you can still see even at that level where we could improve them by 0.5% that would just make it even better. And that's the key. No matter whatever level you are, we can make you a little bit better at moving.
And leading on from that, talking about those extra little bits, and you talked about the horse warming up. How much do you think the rider should warm up before they get on the horse?
Well, that's very important because that's one of the things that I do is literally see people 5-10 minutes before they ride to create symmetry, a sort of warm up. Warm up is very specific to the sport, and with equestrians. Then what we do is create the symmetry. So I either activate a particular muscle or deactivate a particular muscle, or get their spine moving symmetrically so it's not blocked, be it their neck, be it their thoracic spine. And it takes literally 5 minutes. Once you know what each rider needs, it literally takes 5 minutes. So that's the warm-up that they need to be able to. They don't need to jog up and down the lorry park or do a few stretches. Sometimes stretches can make things worse. So there's certain things that can make performance worse, some things that can make it better, and it's finding what each individual needs.
And obviously we talk about a whole team. It's not just the rider and the horse. There's a lot of factors involved. How close would you be then to the horse physio to make sure that the horse is in balance as well as what the rider is doing?
I mean, we always talk about the performance team, and, you know, I give it leading up to 2012, for instance, we were all given the task of improving the half-pass score of every rider by 1%. So whether me as a human physio, the farrier, the vet, the saddle fitter, whatever, the equine therapist, or in our fields, can we improve
Very specific.
Very
just
specific.
Half-pass score of 1%. That's
yes,
amazing.
because, well, two things. One of the coefficient of the half-pass, but also everything the half-pass leads to. So it was analysed that we could then, by doing that, we could beat the Germans, which we did, which was fantastic. And that was the key. So what can we do to just change that one thing? And we always use that sort of analogy of, it's not about changing one thing by 100%, it's changing 100 things by 1% that makes a difference to performance. So when we're talking about medals, which we were at the time, that's what matters. But it doesn't matter whatever level you are, just improve one thing by 1% and a lot of things will change. So for me, working with the equine therapists and the vets is critical. I mentioned the research we did in the States looking at the right hind weakness. So that using that band changed right hind movement quite significantly. And so working as a team, saddle fit as well is critical, because again, a lot of asymmetry of the saddle, poor saddle fitters get the brunt of it if the saddle slips, but it's not often the saddle that's the problem. It is either asymmetry of the horse predominantly, or asymmetry of the rider, or a combination of the two things together. But if you create symmetry in the rider, they can affect the symmetry of the horse, which then makes things move more effectively.
And when you talk about breaking it down, especially getting that extra 1% or for the half pass, how do you do that? Do you look at the Grand Prix and look at the rider ride the Grand Prix and use slow-mo and say where's the rider sitting, what the horse is doing? Yeah,
quite literally that. So we would analyse it in great detail, but also you can see, you know, most riders, say, take the half-pass right, which is often a problem, then they have two problems. One, they can't often sit to the right seat bone and engage the right hind, but also they've got so tight through the left hip that they can't take the left hip behind the girth without twisting. So they block the movement going across, and then the horse can't move effectively. Going the other way, they get too tight and the horse can't bend through the ribs, and so it can, same with the right pirouette or the left pirouette or the changes. You know, most people will have an issue one way or the other. The trick is to be able to, although you still feel one way is harder than the other, make it look to the judges that it isn't.
Exactly. And it's quite interesting. We've talked a lot about, you know, your top riders and talking about the Grand Prix and everything, but we must remember that you also do, you know, your grassroots riders. How would they go about, you know, booking a clinic or getting hold of you?
So, yeah, I mean, my 98% of my work is, well, is working with the grassroots rider. And, yeah, we run clinics all around the country. We've got education stuff all on our website. So we just run clinics, and so sometimes the clinic just is in walk. So it's fantastic, and I love working with the grassroots rider because you can make a bigger effect, because you can suddenly change the way they feel on the horse, and they get this big deep breath and think, oh my God, it's actually easier once you've changed me to move better, and they can be very frustrated. So again, it's at every level. It's just about taking somebody to the next level or wherever they want to be. I always talk about whatever your center line is, whether it is going down Tokyo or whether it's just down the center line in your local school or riding club, it doesn't matter. It's about trying to just improve the way you move with your horse, and then ultimately how the horse moves, and ultimately about prevention of injury and welfare of the horse and welfare of the human. And that's the key to it.
And at the top level, because it's marginal gains, isn't it, at the end of the day? But that you've got to improve the half pass for the 1%. I mean, even sitting down and having that conversation blows my mind. Yeah. And that, who comes up with that? Is it you from watching them all, the team as a whole, from watching individuals, or how do you get like that movement, or how does that?
Well, that one particularly was performance driven by the performance director and the performance managers of dressage at the time, but is also working with the individual coaches. I mean, we had the same thing at looking in the show jumping at the World Equestrian Games in Tryon with the American show jumping team, looking at how we could improve the right turn, particularly of two riders who struggled more on the right turn. You wouldn't know watching them, but they knew that was critical.
Did you then go and watch Marcus Enning and see how he does a turn back?
Well, yeah, yes, exactly. But these two, McLean Ward and Laura Kraut, and looking at how we could just improve their right turn. So it's just picking the details. It's not ever a criticism. It's just, can we just make it a bit better? And of course, they won the gold medal, which was in a jump off, and it becomes really fascinating. But it's not just one thing. It's not just. It's looking at the whole team, and as a team, what can we do as support staff to improve the performance of the horse and rider?
When you were working on world-class programs, sorry, I could literally speak to you all day. You are fascinating. When you're looking at teams, do you do it all on video, or do you find you have to go to the riders? How is it best?
Both. So with world class, that we had the ability to have video footage of virtually everything they did, but quite often I'd go and stand with the coach and watch the coach and listen to the coach and watch the rider, and then analyse them off the horse, and then put them back on, play with some things, see if it makes it better. A lot of it is trial and error. Does it help or does it not? And seeing if we can improve things. And that becomes really interesting. But it's just about communication with the whole team. We were very lucky in the world class with the British team. We had some phenomenal professionals working with us.
Yeah. I don't know about you, Bobby, but what I find so great talking to you, because obviously since 2012, we have riders coming on and we've seen how British dressage has grown and how we've become so successful in this sport. And we always talk about the team, but actually hearing this, you realise how much has gone into the team. And it's actually quite inspirational to hear about the kind of work behind the scenes that goes on.
Especially when we talk about the higher levels, it is an elite sport, and you're exactly why, how much goes behind it. It's not, I remember when we used to go to the world class and we had the farriers, the physio, horse physio, everything, and it was intense. And you used to come away thinking, oh, but actually every time you came away there was vast improvement. And I think the biggest thing, which I think is fantastic that you do, is that you're mobile. So, we used to do it together at world class, which was brilliant, but there was always so many things going on. The times you came to mine was when we really could get into the nitty gritty of it, because it was just you, me, the horse, and you could really find out what was going on.
Yeah, it was really, we were very fortunate with lottery funding, and lottery funding supported hugely in everything, and allowed all the professionals to have the ability to work closely with the riders. Coming and working with the home team is critical. So most riders would have their home physio or home vet, and that becomes very, very important. In America, it's very different because they don't have lottery funding. So they have to raise money to support them. There are some very wealthy individuals that do support the teams, but they do not have lottery funding. So one of my roles in America was to develop systems that would educate the physios out there and the coaches into having a complete system that would mimic what we had in Great Britain, which was very difficult, surprisingly, because they didn't have the money to support it.
And we are going out live on social media, and a lot of people watching this will be grassroots riders. Like you say, you work with all level of riders. Is there a little bit of wisdom we could share with them? Is there a tip that you could give someone who, that they could take away and maybe try on their horses at home? Is there kind of like a common error that you see that, do you know what, if someone just put a bit more weight here or did a bit of this or warmed up better, is there something you can share with us?
Yeah, it's always difficult because everybody's slightly different. Although, as I say, the common asymmetry pattern is most people are weak through their right side, so they'll struggle to get either the weight through the right stirrup or right seat bone. It's very easy to say sit onto your right seat bone, but if they physically can't, the biggest tip is if they can get assessed by their physio and look at their right-sided weakness that they will have. There's no doubt. But they might not, it's so specific they might not have identified it. But again, I do a lot of coach education, and I've trained over 25 coaches in what I do specifically, so that we have a number all around the country that have the ability to identify asymmetries and deal with them in the same way. So it's very difficult, but I'd always say the most important thing is if you're in pain, it's not going to help you, guaranteed. Pain is not performance enhancing. And most pain is sortable, generally.
Yeah.
I do a lot with replacements, hip replacements and knee replacements. I do a lot of clinics that are specific for that. I had a hip replacement at 46, so I know what it's like. You know, you can even ride better with a hip replacement than you did before. So and this is the nice thing about the age difference as well. So it works well. Is exercise, fitness, Pilates is critical. It's important, but finding somebody that has a knowledge of how you apply it to riding is even better. And we're getting better and better at that. There's more people out there that do stuff that is more functional to sitting on a horse.
I'm terrible. I pay for my horse to see a physio and never see one myself.
Well, that's generally what happens.
Yeah, that is what's happened. Honestly, I could chat to you all day. It's just so interesting. Thank you so much for taking the time, because we did grab you and say you must come on the stage.
Yes, I was literally grabbed within 10 minutes of arriving, so it's quite
I spotted you. I was like, that's it, it's happening.
Get him on that stage. The sun has come out. There's lots of dressage still to go here at the Nationals today, but thank you so much for talking to us. So interesting, and I'm going to take a lot away from today. I'm going to sit a bit squarer.
I mean, let's say you're all sitting to your left seat bone, I can see, so it's...
Okay, never watch me ride. No, never.
But it's fun. But thank you so much.
No,
thank you so much.